Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes,
Part
the
two.
episode of hitting buttons quicker than we intended to.
Yes, I hung up on Courtney at the end of part one, and then I was still talking when we started recording part two. So we're in such a good rhythm right now.
We are on the same page 100%.
Always.
We might be in a different book, but we're in the same page.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I had something funny I wanted to talk about. And it came up at the beginning before we started recording part one, talking about how we have to come up with two perks of the week, when we do these double recordings. So we started we did it a long time ago and then we got away from it and then we started doing it again. But every night when we put our 4-year-old to bed, we talk about what our favorite part of the day was. So it's just kind of like a little gratitude exercise that a 4-year-old can
Hmm.
understand. And so she tells us her favorite part of the day and then we tell her our favorite parts of the day. So then it's okay, every single day basically I got to come up with a perk of the day. Well, now random points throughout the day, she wants to know what my favorite part of the day has been so far. So it'll be 8 a.m. and she's like, "What's your favorite part of the day so far?" I'm like, "I woke
Nothing.
up
It's
alive."
8 a.m. I'm breathing. Coffee exists. That's my favorite part of the day.
We spent 13 and a half hours in the car going to the beach last week, and she's like, "Mom, what's your favorite part of the day so far?" And I'm like, "We've been in this car for 12 hours. I don't have, there's no, we're alive. We're in a car. We're on the way to the beach." Like,
Surviving, not thriving.
it is just really, it's a good exercise for everyone all around.
Yeah. Speaking of surviving, not thriving, I thought this could be a good time to tell a funny story on myself because I like to make fun of Kevin, but I think it's time to make fun of myself and Jacqueline knows the story I'm going to tell. And that is,
You're very brave for sharing this with the world, Courtney.
you know what? I want people to be able to have a laugh, to be relatable. And
Uh,
one day when I'm gone, maybe someone can listen to this episode and laugh, but it's just such a funny visual and every person I've told it to is like I can't stop laughing. So I had a rough week at work last week, just rough. So Friday, was gonna have a girls' night, was getting ready. I was like, I'm gonna go take a shower, wash off the day, start fresh for the weekend. Get in the shower. Don't know what was on my shower. It must have been old shampoo, old body wash. I don't know. But I was like, wow, this water's hot. Take a step forward to turn it down. Slip. And in my attempt to catch myself, I did not. I grabbing onto everything. And so I go straight backwards into the shower curtain and the shower liner. I take down the shower curtain rod. I take it all down. And so I am laying on the bathroom floor, naked, wet, showers running, with the Britney Spears autobiography, The Woman in Me, read by Michelle Williams, blasting at full volume. And very freaked out. And so I just start yelling Kevin, Kevin. And I just thought back to all the times post-surgery when I dropped something and Kevin came sprinting upstairs and goes, "Are you okay? Did you fall?" And I was a brat and I was like, "If I fell, it'd be louder than that." And you'd know.
Nope.
It wasn't. He said it barely sounded like anything down there. So good sturdy floors in
Yeah,
between the
got some good
and he
soundproofing.
said, then I heard something faint. And so I decided to check on you. But the problem was I couldn't get up because I'm on a shower curtain liner, which is
Just
very.
slipping and sliding.
So I just think of Kevin walking up to our tiny bathroom, just seeing me there on my back. And also in true, I'm a 31-year-old fashion, I hit my squatty potty on the way down and have a massive bruise.
It's bad.
It's huge. And it's still that whole day when I drove to my friend's house, it hurt moving my foot from the gas to the brake.
Yeah, I bet. I bet you bruise that muscle.
My whole back kind of hurt, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, that's
So
quite the adventure.
I just think the whole Britney Spears audiobook of it all is what just
Just puts it over the
Kevin came in,
edge.
I'm like, can you pause it? So
It's
that's how my
hold on, it's a
weekend.
good part. Let me just wait and listen to the end of this chapter.
I'm like, I cannot hear about Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake's self-managed abortion right now. I need you to pause it.
Oh
Oh
gosh.
God, it was very funny, but I thought that would give people a laugh, just the image of
The
that,
visual.
because when it happened, I was very shaken up. I was very, oh,
Yeah.
also forgot to mention that then Kevin was like, I'll stand here while you shower. And he's like, let me try to put the curtain rod back up. And he goes, I think I got it. And then it fell and hit me in the arm. And he went, okay,
He's like, never
no
mind, my
more.
bad.
We're just,
He's like, actually, I'm just gonna take you outside and hose you off. It'll be fine.
yeah, it'll be fine. So, yeah, but
I'm
it was
glad you
funny.
survived that endeavor.
Yeah, an employee of mine actually was like, my wrist hurts because I slipped in the shower and like caught on my wrist. And I was like, girl, you want to hear something funny? I also fell in the shower.
Like,
Nothing
speaking
even
of,
related to like losing my balance or anything, just
just
straight.
slipped. I mean, just taking the whole shower curtain and rod and everything down with you is just
Yeah.
like top tier, you know?
Yeah, that thing didn't hold me. It didn't. Well, it's not one like drilled into the wall. It's one that's just
Yeah.
like held
Attention
up.
one.
And that
Yeah.
thing, the cat has knocked it down. I'm like, that thing's
Yeah.
not holding me. What was I thinking?
It's worth a shot though, you
Oh.
know? You never know.
Thank God I didn't hit my head on the sink counter because that would have been bad. Because
Yes.
that's the first thing Kevin did. He came and just like grabbed my whole head and like felt it and was like, okay, you're fine.
You're like, my head's okay. Everything's okay.
So I thought that would give everyone a good laugh. And
Yeah.
I keep it real on this podcast and tell embarrassing stories on myself.
You
So
have to, you know? You have to.
yeah.
Oh, well, I guess we'll get into part two. Like we said, there was a lot more to come. So we left off last week. Jane Stanford has just died. She has been poisoned in her hotel room at the Moana Hotel on Oahu. A very horrible, physically just graphic death, as we described at the end of part one. So let's talk about what happened after Jane's death and how this story became so convoluted over the years. So, at the Moana Hotel, Dr. Humphreys had sent for both Dr. Day and Dr. Murray, who was a respected physician. So, Dr. Murray arrived at the hotel as soon as Jane died. So, he pointed out classic signs of strychnine poisoning, such as the muscle spasms and the arched feet. Dr. Murray felt for a pulse and at first felt a slight flicker, but then nothing. So Dr. Humphreys asked Dr. Murray if there was any reason to deny the truth from themselves or others in the room, and he said, I don't think so. So they're pretty obviously saying, we think she was poisoned by strychnine.
Hmm.
So Dr. Humphreys then went to meet Dr. Day, who arrived too late with a stomach pump. So Doctors Day and Murray examined Jane's body and provided the same description as Dr. Humphreys. Dr. Day said he had never seen anything like this rigidity and the arching of the feet. Dr. Humphreys took a vessel of vomit and the tumbler and spoon that had been used to mix the medicine for examination. He also ordered a carriage to notify the authorities. Doctors Murray and Day then took control of the evidence. A cable was sent to notify Jane's brother of her death, and he received the news at 4 a.m. on March 1st. The San Francisco Chief of Police, John Spillane, ordered Jane's body and stomach to be analyzed for poisoning before embalming. So the doctors in Hawaii also knew they needed to call the authorities because the bicarbonate had tasted bitter and Jane showed classic signs of strychnine poisoning. So Deputy High Sheriff William T. Rollins was dispatched to the Moana Hotel and arrived a little after midnight. He inspected the room and took possession of the bottle of bicarbonate soda, and someone at the hotel told him the strychnine had been mixed in with the soda. So Rollins tried to interview Bertha and May, but both were in shock and were not much help. He elicited a coroner's jury, which did include members of the hotel. So in 1904, there had been 18 arrests for murder in this territory that had resulted in 5 convictions. So the local police really didn't have like much experience with this type of situation. Like this is kind of out of the norm for them. So, High Sheriff Henry, who was in charge of the investigation into Jane's death, also believed that crimes were mostly committed by black and brown people. So, the poisoning of a wealthy white woman was very unusual and got his attention. So, George Carruthers had been traveling in Arizona and returned to San Francisco with Jane's will. He knew her family would contest it, so he made sure it was readily available. He had also taken Jane's farewell letter with him to Arizona, but he didn't tell the police or the Morse detectives about this letter because he didn't want it to be exaggerated or misinterpreted. So he thought the public would think she died by suicide and that this letter could indicate a lack of mental capacity that could be used to challenge her wills and trusts. Contesting Jane's will could damage the survival of the university. So Carruthers wanted to transfer the assets he controlled to the university before his authority was questioned. He also did not reveal the existence of this letter for several years, although publicly he insisted that Jane had been poisoned and he believed the same person was responsible for both. So Clifford B. Wood conducted Jane's autopsy from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on March 1st. Doctors Humphrey, Day, and Murray were present at the autopsy, along with a chemist and 3 other physicians who were not present at Jane's death. There was no solid food found in Jane's stomach, and there was no evidence of blood clots in the heart or other indication of a heart attack. So, tetanus was the only other cause of death that would have similar symptoms, but there were no signs of wounds on Jane's body. There was rigidity found in Jane's jaw, legs, and feet, but none in the upper arm or neck. So they found this unusual until they learned that the undertaker said the rigidity was actually present and they had to break it up in order to put a gown on her, which is just such a horrific image.
Yeah, because it makes me think just like how, like,
Yeah,
like once someone's that stiff, like trying to
yeah,
move their arms, it's like, oof.
yeah. So Jane's feet were turned in with the soles of her feet turned inward and arched. Her toes were turned backwards, not pointed down. So all of these things were consistent with strychnine poisoning, and the team couldn't find any other sufficient cause of death. So Wood did rule Jane's death, quote, symptoms indicative of death due to strychnia. So Jane's heart went to Dr. Day for preservation, and the bicarbonate soda, capsules, and vomit from the hotel room went to Professor Duncan. So records show that he received urine extracted from the bladder, her stomach and its contents, and the intestines and its contents, her kidneys, and her liver. Later, when he testified, Duncan testified to receiving all of those items minus the stomach and the contents of the intestine. So it's unclear why he did not claim to have received these when the records show clearly otherwise that he did receive those items.
Mm-hmm.
On March 2nd, Jane's death mask was made and it remains in Stanford University's special collections today. In the days following her death, the newspapers reported that Jane Stanford had died by strychnine poisoning and that her bicarbonate soda was poisoned. So Bertha and May became secluded after Jane's death and tried to be out of the public eye. Bertha told police that she thought Ah Wing was the one who poisoned Jane the first time, but Ah Wing had told police back in January that Bertha was the only one who ever gave Jane her water. So Nora Hopkins, the maid who cleaned Jane's room, was not questioned by police until after reporters interviewed her. She reported conflict with Jane because Jane wouldn't let a man visit her, and she resented her interference in her private life. So the medicine bottle that contained strychnine laced bicarbonate was all over the newspapers, and police questioned Bertha and May about it. So Bertha Burner told a reporter that Jane bought the bottle in Adelaide, Australia, and she never filled it with bicarbonate soda for her, so she's not sure who did fill it. She also said Jane only took bicarbonate occasionally. Bertha later said she did not recall Jane purchasing the bottle in Adelaide, and she didn't know who bought it, but that she'd had it a long time. So again, we see lots of conflicting stories, and we also see lots of information in the press that's then different when it's given to police. And we also
Mm-hmm.
see the press like sharing things that may not necessarily be true, but then you have people who are saying different things. So it's just a lot of stories, a lot happening.
I feel like the press back then, and still today, can be very biased, but the press
Yeah.
back then, like if you read newspapers, it's literally like Reddit threads where it's like,
Yes.
I heard this and that, and we're gonna print
Yep.
it as journalism.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
the amount of things just published like incorrectly in newspapers back then is insane.
Yes. Yes. So, Bertha says that this bottle came with them to Hawaii from San Francisco, but she didn't know how much like bicarbonate soda it contained when they left. So, again, she said she never recalled refilling the bottle for Jane, that someone else must have done it for her. That same day, Bertha also said that the bottle was filled in San Francisco and remained untouched for 5 weeks until they went to Hawaii. So May Hunt gave this same story. However, she was not employed by Jane Stanford at the time the bottle was supposedly filled. She wasn't hired until days before the group left for Hawaii. So after this inconsistency was pointed out, May said she would just no longer talk to reporters about the poisoning. She's like, leave me alone, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. So Albert Beverly said he purchased the bottle in Adelaide and that it originally contained candy. Jane admired it, so he gave it to her, and she used it to store her bicarbonate soda when she traveled. Elizabeth Richmond said she filled the bottle in New York in either November or December of 1904, and Jane said she did not use the bottle regularly. Detectives also found cans of pure soda in both of Jane's houses. The bottle in her San Francisco house was missing a spoonful, so perhaps that was the soda that was used to fill the bottle. Detectives also discovered that bicarbonate with strychnine was purchased from a Palo Alto pharmacy in late December or January. So Paul J. Schwab, who was known as PJ, was a drug clerk there, and the paper suggested that Albert Beverly purchased the bicarbonate with strychnine from Schwab. So again, we have the papers reporting things that, just rumors.
Hmm.
So, PJ Schwab lived in the University Hotel in 1904 as an insurance salesman. So, the newspapers at the time got his name wrong and called him TJ, so he was difficult to track down later. So, Schwab had access to pure strychnine because he worked at the pharmacy, and detectives were trying to find him to question him about the December or January purchase, but he had disappeared. So, just remember this guy because we're going to come back to him again later at the end.
So, a clerk remembered Bertha and Jane visiting the Palo Alto pharmacy on February 6th prior to the Hawaii trip and purchasing 3 ounces of bicarbonate soda along with other items. Bertha told the pharmacy clerk they had a bottle at home that they always use for bicarbonate, and Bertha claimed to have forgotten about this trip when questioned by detectives, but she did report that on February 9th, May Hunt placed the bicarbonate into the trunk when packing for Hawaii. It's interesting that she would forget about purchasing bicarbonate soda with Jane, but would remember the exact date May packed it for the trip. So it's like, how do you remember that weird detail, but not purchasing it to begin with?
Yeah, exactly.
Albert and Elizabeth were no longer employed by Jane during this 3-day period between the bicarbonate when the bicarbonate was purchased and packed for the trip. Jane stayed at her Palo Alto estate during those 3 days, and Bertha stayed with her family for 2 days before they returned to San Francisco together. So, Bertha's mother and brother were reported to have been acting strange during this time, and Bertha's mother believed that Bertha knew who poisoned Jane in January. Bertha's brother worked in real estate and stopped going to work because he said his mother was too upset for him to leave her alone. He also said he'd been protecting his mother from reporters since mid January, but the story of Jane's first poisoning didn't break until mid February. So it's like, why has he been protecting her from reporters for this long? So, newspapers merged both poisonings when reporting about Jane's death. They promised high profile suspects, and many speculated that Albert Beverly was responsible for the earlier poisoning and had set someone up to do the second poisoning for him. They believed he was bitter over the disagreements between him and Jane, and some also speculated that he was setting up Bertha to get back at her. So, Jane's brother, Charles Lathrop, and her attorney, Montford Wilson, both insisted that Jane had died a natural death. They said she was sick with bronchitis or a heart attack or apoplexy, and newspapers suggested both murder and suicide. Some believe she hastened to end her life of loneliness to rejoin her husband and son, and those who suspected suicide believe this could challenge Jane's sanity and could be used to challenge the validity of her will and trusts. If George Carruthers hadn't been involved in Jane's affairs, more of the Stanford money would have gone to her family and the Catholic Church instead of the university. As we just mentioned, the newspapers at the time were full of gossip and speculation. Like it's just they're printing anything anyone will tell them. They don't care if it's true or not.
Yeah, they don't care if this person never met Jane Stanford. They're like, I heard that she said this. And they're like, great,
Yeah.
sounds good. It's going out in tomorrow's edition.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. Here's $5 for that information. Go buy yourself an ice cream. Thanks.
Right.
So on March 4th, Elizabeth supposedly told Albert that she wanted to come clean. On March 6th, Albert admitted to taking rake-offs on the purchase he made for Jane Stanford, but he justified them as his commission. He said Bertha didn't take any herself, but he did split his profits with her. And Elizabeth admitted that she knew about this. And they stole a total of $2,100 during the Pacific trip. And Albert's share was more than his salary for 1 year. So $2,100 in 1902 would be approximately $79,000 today. So a lot of money
Yeah.
stolen.
That they're just like skimming off the top, sliding by.
Whew. And to think she's like, yep, that's the price of things.
Right? She's like, okay, sounds good.
Yeah, crazy. So on March 5th, the terms of Jane's will were released. Bertha Burner received $15,000 and Ah Wing received $1,000. So that means in today's money, Bertha received $500,000 and Ah Wing received $37,000. So a good amount of money. Even 15,000 is a lot, I feel like in today's like you're like that's a good
Right?
chunk of change, but a lot of money back in those
Yeah.
days, like life-changing money.
Yeah. For someone who is not like your family or your university
Yeah.
or like, yeah.
Yeah. Just your quote unquote servant. Like that's a good chunk of money. Albert Beverly was not mentioned in Jane's will, but I think he got plenty money when she was alive. So,
Right.
uh,
He just took it upon himself to go ahead and get it while she
yeah.
was alive.
By March 11th, Bertha was no longer listed as a suspect in the newspapers. Despite her payout in the will, many questioned why Bertha would kill the woman who had already paid her so well and gave her a nice place to live. The coroner's journey at the Moana Hotel continued to investigate Jane's death. The coroner's jury consisted of Bertha Burner, May Hunt, Dr. Murray, and Dr. Day. Bertha said she was continuously in the service of Jane Stanford since 1884, but this wasn't entirely true as they had separated on many occasions. She also said Hawaii was their final destination of this journey, but it had been well documented that they were set to travel to Japan after Hawaii. As we previously mentioned, a much longer trip would have separated Bertha from her sick mother, which she was trying to avoid. So maybe she just said that because, like, in her mind, she was hoping to leave after Hawaii, but
Yeah.
like, it's not the full truth.
Hmm.
She now provided a detailed account of the whereabouts of the bottle that contained the bicarbonate and that she previously said she didn't know anything about. She said the first week of January was the last time Jane used this bottle, and Bertha said she'd used it herself as well. She said the bottle went to San Jose and then back to San Francisco and stayed on a table in Jane's bedroom for a week. The bottle stayed in Jane's stateroom on the steamship on the way to Hawaii and then on to her room in the Moana Hotel. So Bertha reported that Jane usually took bicarbonate soda once a week and never went more than 3 weeks without taking it. So Bertha did not deny that someone put strychnine in the bicarbonate, but her new story did extend the window that someone could have tampered with it. So she's like, well, she usually took it once a week, but it could have been 3 weeks. So it's like, okay, this could have been tampered with at any point,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah. And it was in San Jose, and then it was back in San Francisco, and then it was on the steamship,
steamship.
and
Like,
so many people that could have had access to this bottle in that time period.
yeah. So, if the fresh soda from the Palo Alto pharmacy was put into this bottle, it greatly narrowed the window of opportunity for tampering and the number of suspects who could have poisoned Jane. So, Elizabeth Richmond was no longer employed by Jane during these events, so the second poisoning couldn't have been her if the timeline of purchasing the bicarbonate soda was true. A series of questions were asked about the possibility that Jane's death was a suicide. So, those who knew her said she found it repugnant and incomprehensible, so they didn't believe this was the case. And others said she frequently spoke of her husband and son and hoped to meet them again. And the line of questions about suicide were not included in the coroner jury's report. And clearly, Bertha's statements during the coroner's jury conflicted the statement she gave to police. So, kind of confusing. I don't know if I really buy the death by suicide only because she supposedly was talking to her husband and son. They were her
Hmm.
spiritual advisors, so it's like of course she wants to like be reunited, but in her mind she's still talking to them.
Yeah. I also just feel like, I mean, I get it was 1905 that you didn't have as many options then, but like what a horrible, horrible way to go if like that's what
Yeah,
you're
you could have just
choosing,
jumped off the steamship or
right?
you
Like,
could have at least made it to Japan first to have some, like and even herself saying like this is a horrible way to die. Like
yeah.
and she'd been poison before and knew how
Mm-hmm.
horrible that tasted and how horrible that was,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to believe she would do it again. But
Unless she did it the first time and did not get enough of it, so then she had to do it again. But yeah, it doesn't seem super likely to
it's
me.
like the first time, like, why would she make herself puke?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then the second time, there's like doctors corroborating that like she couldn't puke because she's so,
Yeah.
and like, why would she call out for help
Mm-hmm.
if,
Yeah, that's
because
true.
there is a chance they could have saved her if they got this,
Mm-hmm.
if they made her vomit, if she got the stomach bump, whatever. So it
Mm-hmm.
just kind of seems,
Yeah.
not saying it's not possible, but again, there's a lot of ways
Doesn't
to
seem
do
like
it.
the most likely. Yeah.
Yeah. So the chemist testified on March 7th and confirmed that Jane was poisoned by strychnine. He did not find strychnia in her organs, but said it was clear that this was a strychnine poisoning. The Cascara capsule contained a small amount of strychnine, but this was usually used in those pills. And he also confirmed the presence of pure strychnine in the bicarbonate soda, and it said it contained more than enough to kill a person, although the amount Jane ingested wasn't enough to be stored in her organs. So the newspapers reported, quote, only a trace of poison in Jane's entire body, unquote, and it was clear they did not understand the tests the chemist performed and that he clearly indicated strychnine was the cause of death, even though there was no strychnia found in her organs.
It's almost like people who don't understand science should not attempt to explain what the findings from scientific studies mean. It's
Yeah,
almost like that would not make sense.
yeah, you would think that would
Mm-hmm.
connect the dots, but
Yep. Yep.
here we are, still. What is this? Oh, 100.
120 years later.
Nothing's changed.
Nope.
So a precise amount of pure strychnine was used to poison Jane this time, as opposed to the rat poisoning that was used to poison Jane the first time in her Poland spring water. Investigators were sure that the murderer put the strychnine in the bicarbonate in San Francisco, not Honolulu, which did open up the suspect pool. So the coroner's jury ended on March 8th, but the hearing of the conclusion was postponed to allow the stenographers enough time to make everyone copies of the witness statements. So they delivered their verdict on the evening of March 9th and concluded that someone had deliberately poisoned Jane Stanford with strychnine. He was asked about Jane's spiritualism, and he said she wasn't spiritual, and neither was Bertha Burner, although many other accounts said otherwise. And he also said Bertha had no reason to murder Jane because she was well taken care of while Jane was alive. On March 11th, the San Francisco Chronicle revealed that the package of bicarbonate that was purchased by Jane and Bertha in Palo Alto had resurfaced in Hawaii and appeared to have had enough removed that would have filled Jane's bottle. So, this was the same bag that Bertha previously said had never been opened before they left for Hawaii, and May Hunt claimed she brought the bag to Hawaii in the medicine case at Jane's orders. So the rest of the bicarbonate soda from the order from which Jane's was filled was tested and was pure with no strychnine, so it wasn't poisoned prior to being purchased from the pharmacy. Some of the pages of notes from the coroner's jury have gone missing, but it's clear they had previously existed because certain questions reference other questions and answers that are no longer present in the documentation, and reports from the Morse Detective Agency in Hawaii have also disappeared over the years. On March 14th, newspapers reported that detectives were trying to determine if Jane died of natural causes instead of being poisoned. One reported that Jane mistook poisoning for a case of indigestion and died from hysteria, which I'm like,
Always
I.
hysteria back in the day. Always hysteria.
But also mistaking poisoning for indigestion. Like, the
Right.
woman had indigestion. She'd been treating her indigestion for years. Like,
But
she
it's
knew
just
what it
like
was.
the number of things that men tried to blame on hysteria. Like a lady can't even be poisoned with strychnine without, well, it's gotta be
She's
hysteria.
hysterical.
Yep.
Yep. So other newspapers grew suspicious of the investigation into Jane's death. So some claim that Jane had new wills that were about to come out that could affect the death investigation, and some of Jane's friends said she was insane and nothing she'd signed would have been valid anyway, and the police seemed to be interested in proving that her will could be upheld as they did solving her murder.
So, one obvious question is whether the same person poisoned Jane both times. So, Bertha was the only person who had been present at both poisonings. She was also the only person who knew that Jane would not be leaving for Palo Alto the evening of the first poisoning as planned. So, if you remember, going back to last episode, the two were supposed to leave town that evening, so Jane wouldn't have even been home to consume the water, but their plans changed at the last minute. Some speculated that Elizabeth put the strychnine in the bottle after Jane consumed it to set Bertha up to be fired so that she could take her place. But that doesn't entirely make sense because Jane would not have tasted something bitter if it had been added after she drank from it. Elizabeth also knew that Bertha and Albert were having an affair and stealing money from Jane, so she could have just revealed this information to Jane if she wanted to have Bertha fired.
That's
Wing
true.
also, yeah, like, why would you go to all the trouble of adding poisoning to a bottle after the fact?
Why
There's
would you
easier
take the
things you
risk
could
of
do.
killing her and not
Yeah,
getting the job when you could just have the job?
yeah. So, Wing also changed his story. So, he had complete access to the mansion and often entered Jane's bedroom, but he said he didn't that day because he had been in the kitchen all day polishing silverware from a dinner party the night before. However, there had not been a dinner party the night before, and other staff denied that Wing spent all day in the kitchen. Now, we're going to get into some really interesting parts of this story. So David Starr Jordan really wanted Jane's death ruled as a natural death to ensure her will was upheld, but since the Hawaiian authorities had claimed otherwise, he needed to discredit them. So Jordan reached out to a Dr. Waterhouse to have him write a report to conflict that of the Hawaiian authorities who investigated Jane's death. Dr. Waterhouse did not witness Jane's death or attend the autopsy. He was not under oath or cross-examined as the other doctors who worked on the investigation were. So Jordan asked Dr. Waterhouse if the evidence convinced him that Jane died of strychnine poisoning, and he said decidedly not. He said the witnesses only saw a single spasm and that its severity was not associated with strychnine. He also said that Bertha and May, rubbing and massaging her and putting her feet in warm water, would have sent her into violent convulsions if she was suffering from strychnine poisoning, but it did not. He also used her statement of, quote, I think I have been poisoned, against her by claiming that if she was really poisoned by strychnine, she would have known that and she wouldn't have just thought it. What?
Okay,
What?
so her spasms weren't severe enough, but
Mm-hmm.
her toes were turned backwards and her
Mm-hmm.
feet were like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. And she clearly would have known she had been poisoned. She wouldn't say, I think I have been poisoned. She would have said, I know I have been poisoned.
I
What?
know this is strychnine. I know it.
So, Dr. Waterhouse claimed that reports show Jane overate at lunch and must have had considerable gas, which created pressure on her heart and triggered a heart attack.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes.
Even when we listed that food, obviously it was a good amount of food, but I'm like, have y'all watched someone eat at a buffet?
Like, okay, but she didn't even eat the egg. So it was a sandwich and gingerbread and oranges and
And
chocolate
like
and coffee.
candy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
she had a normal lunch
and obviously she would have had gas that created pressure on her heart and caused a heart attack because the two are
because
very similar.
your digestion system and your cardiac system, they're
Yeah,
the same.
yeah,
You know, if you eat too much, you will have a heart attack. That's
yep. How it goes. He's a doctor, so Um, so even if we pretended that that was something that could happen, Jane's autopsy showed no evidence of a heart attack. Period. So Jordan asked Dr. Waterhouse if traces of strychnine in Jane's intestines would have changed his opinion, and he said no. So his report was based on an afternoon of interviews with Bertha and May. He took no notes, and he did not interview any of the attending physicians. So his testimony very clearly seemed to mirror the story that was published by the Chronicle that she had indigestion and died of hysteria. So, Dr. Waterhouse had a lack of clinical experience and experience with strychnine poisoning. He also did not have access to a medical library to consult when writing his findings. He still went on to say that there were no classic signs of strychnine poisoning, although the two doctors who actually witnessed her death said otherwise. Again, the contracted muscles, the feet turned inward, the eyeballs protruding, the dilated pupils, all of these things. He's like, nope, no classic signs of strychnine poisoning. Waterhouse also could not provide any evidence of indigestion or a heart attack from the autopsy, but he said he believed that was likely the more likely cause of death. On March 13th, Jordan and Waterhouse dined together and agreed to treat the report as privileged communication. So Jordan paid for the report, but the Stanford estate also paid Waterhouse an additional $350, which would be almost $13,000 today, to write this report. So this report could never be published, but Waterhouse's career was destroyed when his Hawaiian colleagues realized he was the doctor Jordan paid to discredit the autopsy. On March 15th, just before 8 a.m., Jane's coffin arrived at the Central Union Church in Honolulu and was met by thousands of people. The day before Jane's funeral, David Starr Jordan and Nora Hopkins drew up a statement saying Jane died of natural causes. They said her advanced age, unaccustomed exertion, unsuitable food, and exposure from her picnic led to her death. They also said these things were perhaps aggravated by the small amount of strychnine found in the bicarbonate.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So her age, and she was walking, and the horrible lunch she had, just unsuitable
Oh,
food,
how dare a woman eat a sandwich?
and the exposure from this picnic on Oahu.
Hawaii doesn't even have snakes. They
It's like
don't even have
70
snakes.
degrees year round. Like,
I
what
know.
exposure? So, so all this stuff like about her health and everything. However, most reported that Jane was in excellent health and had walked miles a day for years. So if you remember back from part one, Bertha said after the university was founded that Jane really like found this purpose and was like reinvigorated, like she was more active, things like that. Also on December 15th, just 2 months before her death, Jane was interviewed by the Omaha News, where she had made a stop during a trip and reported to walk 4 miles a day and be in good health and spirits. So David Starr Jordan held a press conference where he claimed Jane died of heart failure. And this is how the history books attributed her death for decades. Like this was like just a known fact that Jane Stanford died of heart disease in Hawaii.
Wow.
With all of this evidence, with all of these reports, this whole, like the coroner's jury, the Hawaiian police, all of these people said this was strychnine poisoning, the autopsy, everyone. And then here comes David Starr Jordan and says, nope, it was heart disease. And everyone said, okay, great. So Jordan was a white, influential man who was able to point to the inexperience of the Hawaiian authorities and also likely play on the rampant racism throughout the police department to get them on his side. Like he's like, these Hawaiian people don't know anything, and I'm telling you what it is, and clearly they're mistaken, and they're like, "Oh right, you're right."
That is insane.
Yeah, it really is. On March 12th, the San Francisco Call reported that the city police had narrowed the Poland spring water poisoning to Albert Beverly and Elizabeth Richmond working together, or Awing. But if the same person was responsible for both poisonings, it had to be Awing because Albert and Elizabeth were not employed by Jane during the time it's speculated the bottle was poisoned. So newspapers reported that Ah Wing had the opportunity to poison the bottle when it was left in her bedroom before Jane left for Hawaii. As we've mentioned before, Chinese racism was likely the culprit of Ah Wing suddenly being declared the most likely suspect. Like, there are a lot of newspaper articles from the time that literally are like, this man is a killer, this man did it, just like, and I'm sure that racism played a large part in that.
Yeah.
On March 15th, a man named Tay Wang wrote to Jordan about police corruption in Chinatown and that mob involvement had led to his wife's kidnapping. So this letter has been translated, so its exact message is unclear, but it appears that Tay Wang is claiming this event had to do with Jane's death. So there's like all the stuff that he's like basically saying that Ah Wing is involved and there's like the mob and all of this stuff. So Jordan must have felt there was some significance to this letter because he held on to it with his other important papers. Also found in his papers, Jordan had possession of another letter from 1894 that alleged that Leland Stanford Sr. had fathered a son out of wedlock and that Jane made sure he wasn't acknowledged or included in the will. So Jane Stanford's body arrived back in California on March 21st. Flags were flown at half-staff in her honor, which is the first time this was done for a female civilian in California. And at her funeral, Reverend Dinsmore praised Jane Stanford as a good woman who was noble and a queen with high ideals, fixed principles, and unfaltering perseverance. He said her legacy would live on through the university. He made no mention of her cause of death during the service, and other clergy read scripture and offered prayers during the service. Jane Stanford's death saved David Starr Jordan's job and may have even saved the university itself. The Waterhouse testimony was so weak that it was never released, but Jordan did succeed in halting the investigation into Jane's death. Dr. Humphreys wrote to Jordan about his public claims, and this is when he revealed the existence of the Waterhouse report for the first time. Jordan spread a rumor that Dr. Humphreys put the poison in the bottle after Jane died because he would get more if her death was a murder versus a heart attack. What?
I don't think that's how that works.
Like, why would that even be the case? So Jordan said he also learned from someone that cologne had spilled inside Jane's bag during the journey to Hawaii and ruined the bicarbonate soda that Jane and Bertha had bought together. Although Jordan denied the poisoning, this information would also change the possibilities of who poisoned the bicarbonate soda and how if the bottle that came from California wasn't poisoned prior to arriving in Hawaii. So this would indicate that someone who was in Hawaii with Jane had purchased new bicarbonate and poisoned it.
So on May 25th, the San Francisco Examiner reported that Jane's nephew, Welton Stanford, was offering a $1,000 reward to find and convict his aunt's murderer. He was frustrated that the San Francisco police had abandoned the case, largely due to Jordan's interference, and Welton was Leland's brother's son and did not stand to receive anything from the will, so it's unlikely his motive in wanting his aunt's killer caught was because of money. Like, he is just wanting the truth. It's not like he had anything to gain besides knowing what actually happened to his aunt. Dr. William Ophuls was the head of pathology at Cooper Medical College, and he led a team of doctors who re-examined Jane's heart. However, at the time, David Starr Jordan was considering having Cooper Medical College join Stanford University, and Dr. Ophuls would be the dean of the Stanford Medical School, so he wasn't an impartial doctor to perform this exam. As we can see, there's always some corruption.
Always.
Always. A year later, $1,000 was paid to each of the doctors who participated in this examination of Jane's heart. And in December of 1907, Jordan said he still hadn't seen the final report from these doctors, but he had previously quoted the report in May of 1905. This report has never been seen, but Bertha Burner recounted it in the first version of her memoir and said Jane died of a ruptured artery, which again is like, okay, we have a heart attack, we have a ruptured artery, we have
Mm-hmm.
so many things just being thrown around here. Gas from indigestion, hysteria. Um, and by the second edition of her memoir, Bertha dropped this claim. There were many proven lies and inconsistencies in Bertha's memoirs. Although it was never seen, it was reported this exam showed evidence of myocarditis, but the scars were consistent with healing, which would be common in a woman of her age at that time. The doctors didn't believe this was the cause of death and also steered clear of mentioning death by indigestion. So David Starr Jordan remained at Stanford University until the end of that school year and planned to take a long vacation to deal with the stress of that previous year.
It's so hard being racist and discrediting professionals and creating an entire lie. It's so
I
difficult.
mean, I bet it is exhausting being so corrupt.
That's true. That is true. It's a good
You
point.
have to convince a lot of people to be corrupt with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a full-time job.
Yes.
So on May 24th, 1905, Jordan led the commencement ceremony at Stanford before leaving for his trip. In December, the San Francisco Bulletin reported that Jordan said no strychnine was found in Jane's room, and this was just a setup for the Hawaiian doctors and investigators to get more money. They said the Poland Spring water poisoning was done by disgruntled house staff who was setting up Bertha Burner. Hawaiian High Sheriff Henry responded to these claims and said Stanford University was in trouble and needed money, and that David Starr Jordan was complicit in Jane's murder and guiding the cover up. He also said Jordan came to Honolulu just to persuade investigators that Jane died from natural causes. So Bertha Burner's mom died in July later that year, and she received money from her will as well. She lived with her brother in the house they inherited until they sold it in the 1920s and moved to the carriage house behind it. So, with all this information, who murdered Jane Stanford? The San Francisco earthquake of 1906 destroyed most of the murder investigation records, so much remains unknown about her death, especially with conflicting witness statements and deliberate attempts to falsify records and create a false narrative to protect the university and those who would benefit from Jane's death. Did the same person poison Jane both times? The Poland spring water had been poisoned with rat poisoning, while the fatal poisoning had been pure strychnine. So, did the person who poisoned Jane the first time learn from their mistake and try again? Because it does seem like kind of like, oh, you switched it up, like
Mm-hmm.
the rat poisoning was bitter and caught Jane's attention, and she hadn't ingested enough for it to kill her. The pure strychnine wouldn't have been as easily detected, and a smaller amount would have been needed to kill Jane. So, it's like kind of like course correction if one person is responsible. However, pure strychnine would have been more difficult to obtain. The purchase would have been recorded in a poison book at the pharmacy where it was purchased, unless it was stolen from someone who worked at a pharmacy. The strychnine found in the bottle of bicarbonate soda in Hawaii was also the precise amount needed to kill someone. So this does indicate that someone familiar with strychnine placed it there. And I also wonder too, because like the report from the first poisoning came back with like how much strychnine was there and how much strychnine is like required to kill someone.
Mm.
So it's like anyone who read that report would
Yeah.
know exactly how much to put in there. So it's
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
again, kind of back to the house staff who might have had
Mm-hmm.
access or anyone
Yeah.
should talk to about it. So, Richard White, the author of Who Killed Jane Stanford, A Gilded Age Tale of Murder, Deceit, and Spirits and the Birth of a University. I was trying to read that fast and then stuttered right through it. Um, is very intrigued by the pharmacist clerk PJ Schwab as a suspect. We mentioned him earlier. We said don't forget him. He's back. So Schwab was known to be friendly with Bertha Burner and had been accused of embezzlement. So did he provide the strychnine to Bertha without recording it in the poison book? Remember, detectives were looking for Schwab to interview him after Jane's death, but he had disappeared and they weren't able to find him. And the newspapers had incorrectly reported his name as TJ Schwab, so that may be why it was difficult for investigators to locate him also. Schwab also never returned after police declared that Jane died a natural death, and there was no recorded trace of him after that either. Marriage records show that Schwab married his wife Katie in 1900 and they lived in Mountain View in 1904 and 1905. Katie filed for divorce in the Superior Court of San Francisco, which was a different county from where they lived, and the author found this interesting and wondered why she wouldn't have filed where they lived. So the divorce was granted in July of 1904, and Bertha Burner was back in Palo Alto at this time, and the divorce records also vanished in the San Francisco earthquake of 1906. So, that earthquake, a lot of stuff disappeared, or someone uses an excuse to
Hmm.
make it disappear.
Mm-hmm. Someone disappeared and oh
Tin,
no, the earthquake.
yeah, tinfoil hat over here. Um, so, four police detectives have been assigned to Jane's murder investigation, and they were later found to be corrupt. They were also clearly influenced over David Starr Jordan, who succeeded in having Jane's cause of death changed to natural causes, despite overwhelming evidence from the Hawaiian doctors and investigators. Many remain suspicious of Bertha Burner throughout her life. She was the only person present at both poisonings. Her stories change many times about various events, and she did inherit a very large sum of money from Jane Stanford. We've mentioned that many suspected Jane died by suicide to her spiritualism and her desire to be reconnected with her husband and son. The letters that appeared to be farewell letters to George Carruthers and Nora Hopkins can be used as evidence of a death by suicide as well, along with Jane changing her will prior to her death and Carruthers helping her date a document to be appear to be dated earlier. However, these documents and changing of the will could also point to someone murdering Jane. So it's can kind of go either way with that. And many speculate that Bertha helped Jane die by suicide, and then Bertha Burner died on March 11th, 1945. Ah Wing also remained a suspect, as he was indebted to remain in Jane's service until her death because she assisted him with immigrating back to the United States. And her death would mean he no longer had to for her. And Ah Wing also had access to the bottle of bicarbonate in the home prior to both poisonings. And Ah Wing also received a fairly large sum of money from Jane's will. The inscription on the Stanford family mausoleum reads, quote, Jane L. Stanford, born in mortality August 2nd, 1828, passed to immortality February 28th, 1905, unquote. The medical examiner's report declared that Jane Stanford died of strychnine poisoning, quote, at the hands of person or persons unknown. The San Francisco police and Stanford University have maintained the position since 1905 that Jane Stanford died a natural death, which is crazy.
Just
That they're still like
how?
natural
How are they
death.
still like, nope, it was definitely heart disease. That's for sure. When you have so much evidence of strychnine poisoning.
Yeah, and she was only I gotta do the math.
I think she was 76 at the first poisoning, so I think she was still
77.
76. Oh, 77. Should have a birthday in there.
Um, yeah, so just like crazy, because I mean that is older for like that time, but she was in
Hmm.
very good health. So just being
Yeah.
like, and just everything everyone who saw her die witnessed. I'm like, how can you say that's just a natural death? Like that's
That so many people witnessed her death too. Like it's not like it was one person who could have like made it up. It's like there were like multiple witnesses to her death who all described the same
hmm.
thing. Like the coroner's jury, the autopsy, like all these people who saw these very distinct signs of strychnine poisoning. And then you have this one man who's just like, nope, it was a natural death. And that's what people went with. And it was just covered up for so many years because he didn't want any of the wills that left all of her money to Stanford University being challenged if like it was a murder and they had to look into this murder and they had to like hold on to the
Yeah.
money until they could determine who murdered her and like all of these things. It's like, nope, we just need her to have died a natural death so that her money goes to the university as planned and we don't have to worry about that.
And so to this day, like Stanford University's like natural death. Like they
That's what I
still
read. Yeah.
will not. That is crazy. Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, how can you not 120 years out not just
Mm-hmm.
be like, yeah, it kind of sounds like strychnine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so crazy, but also just so tragic, like her
Mm-hmm.
death. And also just like,
Such a horrible death.
and I feel like it's one kind of like our episode last week, not the part one, but the Brian Schaefer, where you're like,
Hmm.
none of these fully make sense.
Yeah,
None of these options make full sense. I don't
exactly.
understand.
So I went on a Reddit rabbit hole, trying to
My
see
favorite
what,
thing to do.
of
Yes.
course, to see what theories, people have. Obviously, a lot of people point towards Bertha Burner. I mean, she received the most money from her will. A lot of people are like, oh, like, but why would she when she was so well taken care of? And I'm like, but also she was taken care of for the rest of her life with that amount of money, so why
That's
not?
true.
And
Yeah,
especially
like
if they
why
had
not?
like a contentious relationship where then she wouldn't have to deal with her anymore.
Hmm.
So that is a possible suspect. She was at both poisonings, was very close, had ample opportunity, motive, all of those things. There is, of course, the theory that Bertha helped her die by suicide because she wanted to be reunited with her son and her husband. Like you said, like we talked about earlier, like that is a very horrific death. That does not seem to be the most
Hmm.
likely thing, but it is possible. There are a lot of theories that David Starr Jordan organized this. Not that he himself was the one that did the poisoning, but that he paid off someone who worked for her to do it.
Honestly, I could see it because he knew he was about to be fired.
Mm-hmm.
So after his vacation, did he come back as president or he just kind of ended?
I don't know. Hold on. Hold that thought. So he served as president until 1913, so another 8 years after her death.
Yeah, so I could definitely see that because he kind of maybe knew he was about to be on the outs.
Mm-hmm.
And he did spend so much time
Mm-hmm.
pushing natural death, which
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get, but also if she was murdered, like, wouldn't her current will still stand?
The
Like,
only thing I can think of is like if they could prove that someone, because most of her money went to Stanford University. So if they could
hmm,
prove that someone with Stanford University murdered her
that's
to
true.
like get the money, then like things would just kind of be like held in courts for a long time. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
But Stanford University was in financial trouble and got a lot of money at her death.
And the fact that even now they'll be like, natural death, it's pretty suspicious.
Hmm.
So I'm not opposed to that one. The Bertha burner, I could also kind of see it there because, like, yeah, she's taken care of, but also it kind of sounds like Jane wasn't the easiest to work for from what we hear from Elizabeth Richmond, who like was getting yelled at because she didn't like sew something on a dress quick enough
Hmm.
and then like Bertha's like wanting to take care of her sick mom is being forced to go on this trip and like obviously it sounds nice going to Hawaii and Japan, all that, but it's different when you're working and not like Jane. You're not Jane who's getting to
Yeah,
enjoy the trip too. So,
exactly.
yeah, but
Sorry, I was looking up something. Because I remembered when I was doing research that I looked at stuff from like Stanford's website, but like they're like articles written by other people like posted on Stanford's website. It's not like a Stanford's like position
statement.
statement that,
Yeah.
they're acknowledging that her death was a poisoning. So I think so maybe it's
Yeah.
that they've never changed their statement. So maybe like they haven't, since the original statement, they just haven't made another what? They haven't made another statement like
Hmm.
changing their position because I
They're
can't
just
find
kind of being
anything
quiet
else.
on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Another theory I read that it doesn't seem to make much sense to me, but they were talking about how strychnine was like present in these things, like that you would consume anyway. So like the Cascara, capsule like had the strychnine in it, and I'm sure other things just like, Coca-Cola used to have cocaine and shit like that.
Yeah.
So like someone said, did she accidentally poison herself because you took too many things that had traces of strychnine, but it was rat poisoning the first time. I don't feel like you accidentally put rat
Yeah.
poisoning in your Poland spring water. So if it
Yeah.
wasn't
That's
for
the
that,
part
I could,
that's
unless that was an attempted poisoning on her life, and this one was a random, which would be bizarre to happen a month later with the same substance.
would have to be
But
the most unlucky
right?
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, just this whole thing is so crazy to me that it is still unknown who did it, that there's so many suspects, like so many people that could have done it, and that it just was covered up for so long. Like I don't even
Yeah.
know when it like became known that it was actually strychnine poisoning. Like for how many decades was it just
Hmm.
like I couldn't even find like an exact
Brushed under the
turning
rug.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
yeah.
crazy. You'll
Yeah,
have to let us know if you knew about this one. If you
yes,
also
please
listened to
do.
this podcast will kill you and were amazed. Because I also listened to that episode and I was like, that's crazy. We should cover that on
Yeah.
the podcast.
Yep.
And Jacqueline read my mind and did it for us.
I
So
did. It only took me 6 months to do it. So
we'll get there eventually. You know, we always
yeah.
say that.
Yes, yes. So yeah, I mean, this one was super interesting. The book was very good. I will give it that. It probably would have been better reading it not for research because, like we talked about, it's so hard sometimes to like,
Hmm.
you know, be absorbed in what you're reading and take notes in a coherent manner and all of those things. But it was a very good book, very well written, a lot of information. So if you want to know what David Starr Jordan ate for breakfast every day of his life, very, very detailed information about all of these people, Richard White is your guy. All right. Any other thoughts on this case? Any other
Not really.
discussion? Okay. Let us know your thoughts, of course. Um, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that, like I mentioned, I had a fall in the shower. That's not my perk of the week, but I was getting ready to go to a girls' night that was just so fun and just such a nice little decompression after such a long week. And then also got to go like tailgating for the game on Saturday and go watch
Hmm.
it like at a bar. And I just love UT football season. I love tailgating, and then I love and the food was so good at the tailgate this week. It was really good. It
Nice.
was Wild Wing Cafe, and I was like, whoa, this
Mm.
food is. They had a blue cheese mac and cheese that was insane.
Oh,
It was so good. Anyway,
I like Wild Wing Cafe.
yeah, I've only been there a couple times because it's usually so far out of the way,
Yeah.
but I guess they're opening the Farragut one
Oh,
back
nice.
up. So it was kind of like promotion for that kind of
Hmm.
thing. But yeah, that's my perk of the week. It was so fun. And like girls' night, we did this little like craft where you take like a candle
Oh,
and you use other candle wax to like
mm.
draw on it.
Nice.
So
That's
mine
fun.
didn't necessarily look the best, but it was kind of cute. I did little flowers in the sun with it raining, so it was kind of fun.
Cool. Yeah,
Just kind of went with the flow there. But yeah,
that's
so
fun.
that's my perk of the week is it's just nice to see people, hang out with people, kind of decompress after a long week and after falling in the fucking shower. So,
Nice decompression after that.
and yeah. So, that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
So this is gonna be one of those perks of the week. I'm not even mad about it. This is truly my perk of the week and I'm standing by it. It is the Taylor Farms sweet kale salad mix. That just
Okay.
it's so good. It's delicious. Hold on. I pulled up the the product on Kroger to make sure I got the name of it right. But but it's the sweet kale kit and it has cranberries in it and it has a creamy poppy seed dressing. It's just so good. It's probably my favorite of the Taylor Farms salad kits. And
Yeah.
Adria's been making just like chicken every week that we can just like shred up and put in there in our little salad
Mm-hmm.
mixes. And it's just really good. And I had that one for lunch today and I was very excited because it's my favorite. And so
Yeah. Kevin
that's
and
my
I
perk
will
of the
do
week.
that. I love the Taylor Farms. I love the Mexican street corn. It's like one of
Mm,
my favorites. And I
that one's
love the
good.
buffalo chicken one. I love the avocado ranch too.
Yeah,
If I add an avocado to it, that's
of
what makes it.
course.
But Kevin and I'll do that. Like if we have really busy weeks, we'll get that like Tyson frozen like grilled
Mm,
chicken, which is pretty
mm-hmm.
good because you can just
Yeah.
throw in the air fryer for like
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes and it's like good to go if it's a
Yeah.
busy week. And then you get the salad and you're like still eating relatively healthy for
Mm-hmm.
like, not making it yourself. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
It's
those.
delicious. They're
I
so
love
good.
those kits.
You have to try that one. Try the sweet
Yeah,
kale. There's
they're
no
so
nuts in
nice
it,
when it's,
I think.
I'll
I'll
double
double
check before I
check.
buy it,
Yes.
but
So yeah, that's my perk of the week. Please let us know your thoughts on this case and if you were familiar with this case before. We're on all the places, on all the things. Please leave us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Any, comments you want to leave on Spotify, thumbs up on YouTube. Where else are we? All the places that you can listen to podcasts, go tell people that you enjoy us. We appreciate it. And most importantly, we are on patreon.com/caffeinated crimes, where you have another episode that came out last week if you're listening to this on the regular feed, or will be out this week if you're getting part two early because you're already here on Patreon.
it's
Because we
true.
have all kinds of bonus episodes. Your part twos are always available at the same time as part one. We have stickers and pins that are available for you guys. You can chat with us. We have some old video episodes. We can do some new video episodes. What else do we got over there? Ad
Discord
free. So
access,
when we do
ad
have
free.
ads, they're all ad free on Patreon. So yeah, come hang out with us. And you just get to support your girls. So,
Yeah, you get to support your local true crime podcast.
yep.
But all those things would be greatly appreciated. Reviews, comments. I'm trying to go through episodes and look at comments when I remember.
You
But
would think we would get notified, but maybe that's some setting we have to figure out how to turn off.
yeah, but I also don't know like how it links. Like, where would we get notified? Like Buzzsprout or our personal Spotify? Like, where would you get? I don't know.
I assume they would like
See,
email because our email is connected to like our Spotify feed. I don't know. Anyway,
you would think, but who knows? Maybe they're just protecting your mental health because
like you
especially
don't need to
big
know.
there you don't want to look here.
Yeah.
But yeah, then do all that, do all the things, and in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.